Hey there, and welcome to the Brittany Wheeler Show. Join Brittany as she interviews incredible people whose stories will uplift you and remind you the life you long for is just ahead. Buckle up for an inspirational ride to your best life. Take it away, Britt.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Brittany Wheeler Show. So excited to have you here today. If you're watching via YouTube, welcome. If you are listening in your car, at the gym, while you're folding laundry, no matter what you're doing, we're so grateful to have you. My name is Brittany Wheeler, and I am the host of the Brittany Wheeler Show, and I am really excited for today's conversation. So I'm going to get in and introduce our guest. She's a daughter of Christ. She's a wife, a mother, a daughter, a sister, a friend, a leader, a visionary, a servant heart. She's a community pillar, a supreme connector, not just a connector, supreme connector, and the executive director and founder of One Christian Network. Please welcome my friend, dear friend, Emma Baltezore, to the Brittany Wheeler Show.
Thank you, Brittany. That was quite the introduction. Thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely.
For the first time.
Absolutely. Happy to. It just felt right, timing wise, to be introducing you to the Brittany Wheeler community. So yeah, it just felt like this was the time. And I'm glad that, that we waited and we found pockets in your busy schedule to make it work.
Yes, I'm excited.
Awesome. So I know you know me, I'm obsessed with your children, but yet the audience is like, that's weird. Tell us more. So I would love for you to share with the guests either how we met, or a story that you feel the audience should hear about us.
Yeah, so we met through the Roastery. It's an amazing coffee shop. And I guess we're just always meeting there, working there, meeting with people. And we didn't really connect until, I guess, this year, really. And just kind of find out like what you do and how you do it and whatnot. And ended up getting to work with you as a coach this past year, which was really fun. And then just have become friends since then.
Yeah. And it's been really special too, because I think this is also one of those testimonies of just like riding out the ride, right? Because we were introduced over a year before we even started working together. And it was just like, we knew of each other. We were just like blimps on each other's radars going in the same direction, right? And then, God's plan, timing, all of that mixed together. And it's been, being able to work with you and to see what you're doing with One Christian Network and to see your vision for the city and also to be an advocate for you and a cheerleader for you personally has been really special. And so I'm excited later on the show at the end for you to share with the audience what you are doing and how they can be involved, because I know it's going to be a huge part. And I hope that this reaches the people that you need to reach, and also the opportunity to get to know you a little bit more, which will be real. Okay, next segment. This is really exciting and new, and it's like becoming my favorite, which is I'm asking my guests to bring a mug to drink out of, and I would love to know how it came into your life and why it's your favorite mug.
Okay, I'm really excited about this because I have a mug that like I literally drink out of every day. And if it's like dirty, I will hand wash it. So I'm about the like mugs. So, okay, this is my favorite mug.
Love it.
And it's by a local artist. It's very simple. My life is very crazy and chaotic. So when I have my little mug in the morning with my little quiet time, I like for it to be like simple. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it is by local artist, Emily Tippett. She has a business called More Than Clay. Should have her on here. But she creates these mugs and I love the wave because I love the beach as well. So it's simple, but yet it reminds me. And obviously I enjoy the beach. And some people are just listening so they can't see. My background is two pictures of the beach. So yeah, and it's big enough. It's not too small. Like I like a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
And so that's why I chose this mug, and I drink it out of it almost every morning, unless I'm in a rush.
I love that.
And I can't find it.
And it's all about the hand holding, right? Like,
I mean,
you have
this
to
handle.
your
like,
circumference of your hand in the hand
It matters.
itself. It matters, right? It matters.
It really does.
And
So
it
it's
makes a
like
difference.
it's kind of like a journal. If your journal is not cute, you don't want a journal. If your coffee cup is not cute, you're like, I don't really want to drink out of that. It doesn't excite me. So it does matter. So
You've said a lot
I'm
of
about
profound
this.
things, and that's some of the top 3 most profound things you've ever said. Yeah, that's it.
For
That, like,
real.
you're not gonna drink out of it if it's not the mug, and,
I
you know,
mean,
it's been
it's the
really
little
cool.
things, right?
It's the little
I
things.
don't know why I have like 2,000 mugs in my cabinet when it's the only one I use, and none of them match, by the way. Okay. Actually, there's like 2 that match.
Your husband's
But
not gonna watch this episode, which means he won't encourage you to throw out the remaining
don't let them hear this
199
because
mugs.
it's all about like simplifying. And I'm like, "But we might need this mug and all that stuff." And I've got sentimental value to other ones, even though I don't use them.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
I think you're just actually speaking out what a lot of people are feeling, so thank you for having the courage to do it
Yeah.
globally, because
There we
that's
go.
what you just did. I love it. Okay, so I wanna go back to young Emma, and, I really wanna know, I want the audience to know, like, was there a moment, or what was the moment when you were younger, young adult, when you knew that you wanted to help people? Because those that don't know you, you started as a teacher, and so I really wanna know, like, the root of the root, even outside of the profession.
Yeah. Well, I've always loved kids. So I always knew like I didn't want just like a desk job where you just sit and like do the same thing every day. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I love children and I wanted to make a difference. And so and my mom was a teacher, my aunt, like I had teachers in my family. And so it just kind of made sense to be a teacher. But really where I knew about like helping people outside of teaching was when I came into the Lord, honestly, I just wanted to serve him, which means you love people and you serve people because that's what he did. But really, what I really it clicked for me is when I was 19, I got a chance to go on a mission trip to South Africa. And it actually was a wild story because we were supposed to go to Kenya and a war had broken out. And this is 2003 and show my age. But war broken out and it wasn't safe for us to go. So the whole trip, within 3 weeks, 50 students across the nation from all different parts of the nation got rerouted, flights, our assignment, where we're going to stay. And so the whole thing from the beginning was like an adventure. Our leaders had been going to the same village in Kenya for years and years. So like they knew Kenya, the back of their hand, they spoke the language, they knew the people. So this was like, they didn't know really what they were getting themselves into and they're having to lead. And like, I don't think we really understood the amount of things that had to be worked out to make this trip happen. So, but that trip was very life changing. When I went initially, I really was actually questioning my faith. So I'm like, why am I going on a mission trip to share about God and Jesus and just be his hands and feet? And I don't even I'm not really sure this is even what I want to believe in. But when I got over there, God just used the whole trip and really showed me that he is who he says he is. We actually would go into the prison cell with young men, and a lot of them were like in teenagers. So we were about like the same age almost. And um, they were actually teaching me, right? Like they taught me a lot about just having joy. Like they were in prison and they had to find joy in a jail cell. And so and then also they were finding God there and experiencing how I experienced God in different ways, like all the way across from the world. And they were actually singing some of the same songs that we did. We were singing at UNCW when I got to college with campus ministry. So God just like really showed us like how similar we were, and like wherever we went, we were accepted, like as the body of Christ should accept. Like we were staying in people's homes that we don't know, and they just welcomed us. So I was like the stranger coming in, and they welcomed us, and like God just ministered to me so many ways. And so after that, and also just saw the disparity and like the lack of opportunities that these people had, and I just wanted to be able to somehow be a bridge, share resources, and just be a light. And so that was kind of like that was really a catalyst, that trip, and other things as well, but that was a big one
Love
for
that.
me.
Yeah, it's interesting. You said something around you went to serve, but what happened was they ended up leaving you better than in many ways than you came. And so I just, as you know, finished up my contract with Vigilant Hope, a nonprofit in town, working with community leaders and working with the community to help the unhoused and to love your neighbor and to walk alongside people to help them grow and develop not only in their relationship with Christ, but also just in what it's like to do life, right? And to be seen and to be heard and to be loved. And I just posted today, like kind of like an end of the chapter post, and I have felt this so strongly that my work with Alan, Lawrence, and Carl, I learned so much more from them than I think they learned from me, and I really believe that is an invitation and honestly a blessing and the gift that we get when we choose to take our judgments, take our thoughts, take our ideas, humble ourselves, walk beside someone, and actually get to know them, right? And I think in a culture, especially in the United States, where we don't know how to kind of like drop ourselves and just come, right, with arms open and hands open. And sometimes I think people think like hands open means to give. No, it means to receive, even if you are giving of your time or your talents, right? Like it is truly
Mhm.
two ways. And what I've witnessed to be true in the past year and a half, and not just with Vigilant Hope, but with One Christian Network, is like when you can, drop that layer of yourself and you can humbly walk along someone, that is when God works. That is when lives are changed. And that's when we see lasting impact, sustainable long-term impact. And so, I think for you, you went there to serve these men, in prisons, and they ended up serving you. And God was using them to plant the seeds that this is where I'm meant to be. I'm meant to be in community. I'm meant to be, with the people, and in order to love them and to serve them.
Yeah. And the other thing that happened on the trip is the people that I went with were from all different cultures. I mean, we had farmer, people that are in the country, like in Montana and living in rural areas, and people that are from Mexico, and Asian Americans in Boston, and like just so many different cultures. So I just learned a lot from the team of like people I'd not normally had not had the privilege of learning from, and just seeing different perspectives.
Mhm.
And I think right now more than ever, that's something that we can learn from, is like appreciating differences, and trying to understand where people are coming from really helps build bridges and helps change you, because you're like realizing um that we can just do a lot more if we can understand each other better and like listen more. So
Well, and to speak to that before we jump into the next question was, I'll never forget when Laura shared an example with me, which I know you're going to relate to just in the work that you're doing, but she had shared with me, Laura is the executive director of Vigilant Hope. And when I first started being a part of the group, she and the community, she shared with me the story of how someone had come up to her and said, I want to know how to serve John. I see he's got holes in his shoes and I want to get him a new pair of shoes. And Laura had encouraged this person to say, before you do that, go and ask them what they need. Go talk and ask what they need. And what this woman didn't know was that John was not worried about his shoes. What he was worried about was getting a ride to the doctors to um, renew his prescription for mental health medication that he would, and he didn't care
mhm.
about his shoes. And I think that's such a
Yeah.
simple example of like, it is so easy for us to look at someone and to just assume that we know what the need is when actually the opportunity is to ask and then to determine, are we the ones that are going to be able to serve and love them, or do we know someone else that can, right? And I think that that is
Mhm.
something that uh, we all need to be doing more, is to love our neighbor by asking, right? And communicating and being able to ask for help, but also being able to ask, what do you need, so people feel permission in high trauma spaces and high risk spaces to be able to say and rely on you and know that you're going to be there to support.
Yeah, for sure.
So how did the community and your family growing up like model loving people like Jesus, right? Because I don't think that yes, I think there's an element of that kind of comes from within, but I really do believe that those kind of skills and habits are modeled, that you witness those throughout your life. So I'd love to know, where did that start for you?
Yeah. Well, I came from a family that my grandfather was a pastor. So my mom, is PK, pastor's kid.
Mhm.
And my parents, actually, my grandfather was my dad's pastor for like years as well. And so both sets of grandparents went to the same church growing up in Burlington. And my parents met in the fourth grade and grew up going to church together where my grandfather was a pastor. It's a little bit of like Pleasantville action, like everything stays very same, a lot of stability. Um, but just like good, hardworking people, my parents were and or are. My dad is in heaven right now, but but I was just modeled like um what it means to work hard, what it means to be loving, love your neighbor, and just integrity, doing the right thing. Um, I did not. I grew up. Also, my parents were very much like you figure it out on your own. They weren't very like um controlling or trying to like push religion. They just were good people and went to church and like my dad, both my parents were servant leaders. But I remember specifically my dad, there was a woman in our church that was like a shut in, like she couldn't leave, like she literally couldn't leave the bed for years. And every Sunday, my dad would go visit her, like, and no one probably even knew. And there's nothing this woman could do for him, but every Sunday he would go visit her. And that's the kind of person my dad was. He went above and beyond. He owned an appliance store and like for customers that couldn't pay their bills or people that got in a rut or had something issue with their appliance, like they go above and beyond, like make sure they get it fixed in time, and just all of that. Treated his employees well, no matter their background, their race. Like he always just treated people with respect, and he always met people feel seen. So if we go to like a restaurant or wherever he went, he always made a point to learn the person's name and make them feel seen and like joke with them, form some type of connection. And so I kind of was modeled that my whole life of like, there's no stranger. So I kind of feel like I live that out as well. It's like, you don't know what people are going through. And if you can just make a connection, smile, learn their name, it could be that one little thing that makes someone feel like they can continue on and that someone sees them and someone cares. So I was modeled that. My mom was also very caring, and she was like a mental health counselor and also a teacher, and wore many hats, like served in the church, was always teaching or doing something for people as well. And my mom also always like got in the word every single morning, journaled, and she just modeled that. She never like forced me to do it, but she just lived that out. Um, and always like I think another thing that they model, or my mom especially, was like always been a lifelong learner. She's always like learning, going to workshops, like, and then teaching people that whatever she's learning. So I think I definitely had a good family upbringing in modeling that, or they modeled for me. But also my grandparents were very active. Both sets were very active in my life and also modeled that as well. So yeah,
What was your dad's name?
Dennis.
Dennis. And what is your mom's name?
Mhm. And
Ian. It's
yeah.
so interesting as I'm like hearing you tell this story, and I'm literally like just kind of watching as both of them are being morphed into you, and maybe not at the same time, right? Like, but to see that your dad was an entrepreneur and you weren't at first, but now you are, right? Your mom was a teacher, you were a teacher, right? Like you have built a nonprofit faith-based entity, right? So bringing in your grandparents into that as well, because you work with churches every single day and church leaders. And so you literally are like the coolest, like smushed all together best
Yes.
parts of your parents, right? You could send them this clip and be like, Mom, love you. uh,
I know. I don't think my mom realizes like the impact, that her and my dad had, like just by being who they are. Like they weren't trying to, you know, do anything different than just who they are. So I mean, they worked a lot, and that's something that I have to kind of reel in and make sure I'm not that I'm balancing everything, because they worked a lot, and they had a lot of hats they wore with, like, my dad was a deacon, and, they served in all these committees and all that. But it showed me, like, hard work and serving, and I'm thankful to have that upbringing. And I was also had a lot of aunts and uncles that didn't some of them don't have children, so they kinda adopted me and whatnot. So I definitely am thankful for, like, my family heritage, I guess. Just, so yeah.
This is not on the board, but it just kind of came to mind. I think there's a lot of people too, just that are listening to your story and being like, "Oh my gosh, okay, overachieving Emma's family," right? Like they're just like, "Wow, this is amazing," and yet they feel overwhelmed, but yet their heart yearns to maybe model that for their own children, right? Or make a difference, or change the generation forward. As someone that is a generational product of servant leaders, community leaders, religious leaders, um, and people that love your neighbor. And now that it's just like riding a bike for you. But what would you share with someone that is listening that wants to start being that for their family, whether it's their husband, wife, whether they're dating, like whatever, how would you share that with people who want to pave that way for the next generation for themselves?
Yeah. I think it's just doing whatever you're called to do well, because my parents, like, didn't I mean, my dad took over my grandfather's appliance business, but they just showed up every day to work and worked hard. It wasn't like they were like, "I'm gonna start this nonprofit," or "I'm gonna go preach in Africa," like, or "I'm gonna whatever." And, like, those are good things, but, like, they just showed up. And so I think, but also in some ways, it was hard. I was a teacher, and I had left teaching to start this nonprofit, and, like, that was really hard for my family to, like, because you're, in that generation, you get a job and you stick with it for 30 years and you retire and you got your safety net and everything. And so I think, like, even so, no matter your background, whether it's all over the place, like, I think just listening to what God wants you to do and having faith that He's gonna give you what you need. Because even though I did have a background in, like, modeled Christian, values and hard work, but also, like, I had to branch out and not only be in the mold of, like, doing what, the typical linear path was. Because I could have stayed in teaching for 30 years, and I just wasn't. I had to, like, kind of be willing to make my own path, and I think everyone has to do that. We can't just live in, like, we can't let, like, our background keep us from what God has for us.
So good.
So
And I think too, um, I think that example of leaving teaching is just an example of resilience and grit and all the things. I also feel like there's a lot of people who believe that in order to make an impact, right, their calling has to be their career. And,
Mhm.
you know, and so ultimately, if we're really waiting for that to happen, right, we're never going to get started because it's not always the case, right? Like,
Yeah.
and even within owning a business or being a teacher or being a mental health professional, your parents still found a way to live in their calling. And I, I would encourage anybody listening to just get started, right? Don't worry about getting paid to do it. If you enjoy serving a certain
Mhm.
community, right, or a certain people group, or I don't know, just I don't know, you love folding clothes and you're like, "Oh, I'll get this part-time job because I love folding clothes and I can talk to people." I don't know, like, I trust me, back in the
Yeah.
day at Old Navy, you could put me in the corner of clearance and I would color and size that stuff without even, like, 2 seconds flat. It would be like it's therapy, honestly. Um,
That's
but, like,
funny.
I just think you and I as entrepreneurs, and we have found our calling as well as our career, right, that pays us. But I think there's a lot of people that are just waiting for that to happen, and that may not be the case for themselves.
Yeah. I think I do think it's so important to find your purpose, but it doesn't have to be one thing. It can be that you're a good listening ear to your friends, and available, because people who are really busy and head of organizations, like, they're not as available. And so I just think there's so many different ways that we can fill our purpose. And it doesn't have to be like, I think we like to put in a box, like, my purpose is this. But, and it's like, but there's many things that you're on this earth for that only you can bring with your gifts and talents and where you live and the time, that you're on this earth. Like there's so much to be discovered, I think, with what we're called to do. And not negating, like even so many times when I was teaching, like I knew that God was calling me to something, but I sometimes wish that away. Like I was making a difference with the staff at the school, with the students, and just showing up every morning as like a light in that school. And I think just being appreciative of the season, knowing it might not be forever, and just not like wishing that away. Doesn't mean you don't work towards something else if you're feeling called to that, but just feeling like every season, no matter where you're at, like just doing it to the best of your ability and knowing like just being who you are. Just like when I was sharing about my parents, like they weren't really trying to like mobilize people into this thing or whatever. They were like literally just being good humans and like showing respect, the fruits of the spirit, like joy, peace, patience, kindness, and just having like integrity while they did it. And that literally changed my life and for generations to come and impacted many people. My mom's actually an ovarian cancer survivor, and the way that she walked through cancer, like she wasn't trying to change the world, but she just leaned into her faith and shared her story. Actually, what she did was she wrote a email, and really it was about she didn't want to update a million people all the time. She's like, I'll just send the email. Y'all can read the email. I'm not going to tell you over and over like what's going on. And it's called Mind, Body, and Spirit. And people started forwarding it, and she just became as known as like even people who didn't know her were getting this email because she just used like it as a way to update, but she was ministering to people through like putting scripture, showing how she deals with, chemotherapy and all this stuff. And so it helped a lot of people, but it was just leaning in and doing what she could to like, walk through cancer. Like, so I think it's just like whatever season you're in is knowing like that by showing up in your best self, like for your family, for your friends, like you're making a difference. And there might be something else for you that you might need to pause and ask what it is, but just knowing like being who you are, it matters, you know? So
It's Thank you for sharing that, because I think that immediately we can get caught up in the hard things of life and things that are happening to us. And your mom was like, no, 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 it's happening for me. And you were talking about fruits of the spirit as well. And all I kept thinking about was like the fruits of the spirit, right, are a result of roots in the Bible, roots in kindness, goodness, right? But it's bigger than that. It's actually taking a step, right? The fruit does not bear because you sit in your room and it just plays, right? It just happens. It just plays out. And that's really been the theme of, as you've been sharing your parents' story in this show and sharing about yourself. None of these happened because you sat there and said, God, please bless me with this. No, it was literally taking steps of faith, trust, persistence, resilience, right? Overcoming. And so I just think if somebody's listening and they're like, well, how do I get the fruit? And it's like the fruit doesn't come without the work, without the harvest, without the hard work, right? And there is a blend of giving it to God and doing the work. Two things are true, right? And so in that story, the produce and the product of the fruit is a result of the work and what's happening to you and in you, right? And around you. And I can imagine that and I'm excited to hear your answer for this question. I can imagine that has been also a huge part of your story, in all the steps that you've taken to walk into your calling. And so I'd love to know an example of that you have of overcoming into hardships or obstacles in your life, and what advice you'd give someone who's currently in that season of overcoming obstacles in their own life.
yeah. So when I was growing up, like when I got to college, I felt like I had been kind of sheltered in a way, even though my parents let me be in a lot of ways independent and didn't like try to control me. I just felt like I hadn't experienced a lot of pain and trauma that some of the friends that I was meeting talked about. But probably a lot of my during college, I experienced a lot of death and loss. Um, my in 2002 or 3, I believe it was 2003, my cousin committed suicide. Um, my uncle passed away, who I was really close to, with cancer. My grandparents, passed away. And then I was with my college roommate when she found out. Actually, today was like 23 years ago today. She found out her mom died from a car accident. So I was with her when she found that out, walked with her in that season while I'm living with her. Then my now husband, but he was my boyfriend at the time, his dad passed away. He was a sudden heart attack in his 40s. And then his stepdad passed away and he was only 50, like the next year. So it was literally so much death, but like in my college years, and like either my own that I was dealing with or people I was close with. And I was honestly like, I didn't want to answer the phone when my mom called because I was like, who is it going to be? Like,
Yeah,
honestly,
you were just
I
waiting
had like
for this.
anxiety.
Yeah.
Like if she called me, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
what is it? And
What
then
is it?
and then my mom, later on got diagnosed with ovarian cancer, which is one of the most deadliest cancers. So I kind of like mourned her death. So it's just a lot of death. And so I really just depended on the Lord so much and scripture. Like, I don't know what I would have done because knowing that like like nowhere in the scripture says it's going to be a walk in the park. I think we've gotten this thing of like, okay, become a Christian or, what isn't supposed to be like easier, it's like, no, but he says he'll never leave us nor forsake us. And in Romans 8:28 it says that he will always use what's meant for evil for good. And knowing like he's not gonna make it perfect, right, all the time. So I really wrestled when I first became a believer. I'm like, I prayed, for like my uncle, for example, to get healed and just not understanding like and just feeling just like, Lord, how come you didn't answer my prayers? I know we've all been through like questioning God's goodness. And it's like knowing like this is not our home. We are passing through. And just being around community. I had such great community in college through InterVarsity Christian Fellowship and just the people that I was around, like encouraging me and staying just in community, not isolating, and just staying on truth because otherwise, like it would be easy to there's parables that talk about the seed going on, rocky ground and like the wind comes and just takes it away and just staying rooted in like faith and truth and people that can support. I don't know what I would have done, honestly. And honestly, my boyfriend, who's again now my husband, we met in college, Alan, um, he stayed strong. Like, I don't even know how. Like, he had so much loss. I haven't even gone into all the things, but he he stayed strong. So I'm like, I think we just strengthened each other a lot. And it's like he had a stronger faith too. Like when I met him, like he had really like he knew the word. He had a stronger faith than I did. And so he helped me a lot too. I'm like, man, like I mean, don't get me wrong, he got mad at God too, but he had his moments, but he didn't blame God. And I think that really helped me like realize like I didn't need to blame God. And I could trust that even in the midst of this pain and this sorrow, like God is still good. And he's the one that we just press into, like, because this isn't our home. Like we're passing through. We're sojourners. That's what the Bible says. So anyways, that's how it helped me build resilience. I think just going through it myself.
Yeah, well, you brought up so many beautiful perspectives, and like if I didn't love Alan and Rob Reddy, I love him more.
Yeah.
I there's a lot of people on this that listen to this show that maybe know of God, don't know God, right? The target audience for this show is mostly people that don't know God, in my opinion. I can't be wrong. I could be wrong, but like that's the reality. So I think from that perspective, what would you share? Um, with someone who's like, well, how do you have faith when all this is happening, right? How do you believe? How do you not get angry? Like I've got 17 questions that I'm processing that I think someone who doesn't know God and has all of that death and all of that like grief and heaviness happening. It's like, how can you believe in God, right? So I just want to know your thoughts on that.
To me, I'm like, I don't know how he can get through life without him and knowing there's a bigger purpose. And we live in a fallen world. We're just in a fallen world. And it's hard not to because that is my biblical view. I mean, my worldview is biblical. So I believe that the scripture says that the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but God comes to give life and life abundantly. And that honestly, I don't have enough faith to believe that there's not a God, the creator. And even if I haven't studied the scripture or whatever, I would hope that the creator of the universe that put the stars, that hung the stars, that created humans is a loving God. And because he's loving, he gives free will. So that means there's not like this perfect utopia. And if there was this perfect utopia with all things are perfect, then we wouldn't need him and we wouldn't need each other. And so I think a loving God allows there to be free will, which unfortunately means there will be pain, there will be suffering. And honestly, I don't think he's up there like choosing like, okay, this person's going to get more pain than others. But I think the enemy also wants us to think that like we're the only ones experiencing and we're only ones who could know what it feels like for XYZ. But no one will not have pain on this earth. No one. And we have to decide, like, are we going to lean into which I call God or higher power and try to lean in and say, like, how can I depend on, God's strength or, you know, like just being able to know how to deal with it and be able to know that you're not alone. I can't imagine not having that. So, yeah, that's kind of how I think about it. But I understand some people, it is hard to understand how a loving God could allow so much evil. But I kind of think of it the opposite way because he is a gentleman and he allows free will because he's not going to force people. He's not going to force everything, right? And so anyways, we can get into some deep theological things on that, but the main point is we know that there is evil and we're going to decide, like, even if you don't believe in God or not, like, you got to decide how you're going to deal, like, take your cards that you're dealt with and do the best you can with what you've been dealt with. And don't, like, you have to learn how to, like, move through trauma and get through because everyone has trauma. Everyone, like, I know that some people have more than others. Well, figure out how to, like, get counseling, get support, whatever it takes to fight for getting through the other side so that you can live with purpose and joy and not always being bound to, like, your past. So that's, yeah.
If somebody didn't know, is listening and doesn't know God, but feels like they're at the end of themselves, like they don't even know where to turn. They're just so overwhelmed, right? As somebody who has been in those places yourself and you've been a believer, but also you've walked with people in those hard seasons who didn't know God, right? And helping them the next steps. What would you suggest someone do if they're just totally at their wits' end?
Yeah. I would just say ask God to reveal himself because he will. The Bible says, if you seek me, you will find me. And I remember when I was first, like, questioning, because I questioned everything. When I'm talking about, like, I mean, from dinosaur, I mean, just everything, like, just trying to be like, are you really who you say you are? Delving in deep in theological questions and life questions and not just taking it for, for just because someone told me I should believe. I would ask him, and I know that, like, the Bible does talk about, like, not, like, testing God, but I did ask him to reveal himself, and he did in so many ways. I'll tell this one story that right before I went to South Africa, like I said, I was questioning God. So my roommate, actually the same one who lost her mom, she was going to another city in South Africa, that another whole area for her social work practicum that she was doing that summer. Totally different. We didn't have our cell phones with us or anything. And I was like, man, it would be so funny if I ran into my roommate in South Africa. No phones the whole summer, even before we went. So I didn't even know exactly when she was going to be there. Well, they had planned this like little excursion during the trip to go see this Cape Point where two oceans meet. And I'm in this, and it's a huge place. So even like if we had tried to plan, and I'm in this gift shop and I hear her voice. She's in this gift shop in Cape Town, in Cape Point, in South Africa. Like she actually had to fly there with another group, like randomly hitched, like asked to join this group because she went a little early before her class started. So it was like a flight of a different city. And I didn't even know. I'm just like, what? And the God just shows like, I see you. I heard your request and I am who I say I am. And like over and over again. I mean, that's just one story, but like I can tell you so many times, I'm like, Lord, can you show up in this situation, meeting certain people? And ever since I've like said yes to him completely, he has blown me away. I can't financially, provision, I just can't. Like the ride is with him has been so much better, even with the trials. Like there's been so many more highs than lows because like when you're in the pocket of his will and you're like, it's just, you can't deny the favor of God on your life. And so I would just say, I know that's a long story, but seek him and you'll find him, and just be open. Like if you've been hurt, I just want to say this as well. If you've been hurt by Christians and you're confused on like why Christians are acting a certain way or doing certain thing, please don't blame God for that, because there's a good
We need a whole other hour to go into this topic. I'm like, oh my gosh, you just locked me.
I'm just saying too many times people, because we are supposed to be image bearers, right?
Yes.
We are image bearers, but I mean, Christians have done so much harm, and just remember that is not God, right? And we're fallen, and we're missing the mark on so many ways. Mm-hmm. Believers are. So don't let Christians keep you from finding that relationship with him that is so beautiful and wonderful, and he loves you. Like if you're listening right now, he loves you and he wants a relationship with you. So that's my little.
That was good. That was good. And I will say, like, we really do need a whole episode to talk about Christians falling short. But I think that to what I believe is happening in America as it relates to seeking God, loving God, being found by God, means that we have to dismantle the ways that were. And I believe that what you are doing with One Christian, I believe that what I'm doing in this show and all the other things is walking authentically in alignment with Jesus, right? With God, and not allowing the gray area, the rules, if you will, that don't actually make sense. They're not real. They're not rules that God has put in place. And I think that's where we've found ourselves in 2025, is that the Western church has, because we're human and we're broken and we fall short and we make a lot of mistakes, we've done a lot of hurtful, bad things that have compounded interest. And now over time, there are people that don't know God because they thought they had to have these prerequisites: look this way, talk this way, dress this way. I remember I thought becoming a Christian meant that I had to sit by a fire saying kumbaya and wear long skirts. And I was like, no, like I that's what it is. I don't want any part of it. Yeah. Right. Because that is what the world and the people in it have showed us. And so I second what you shared about, people will hurt other people. It's not going to stop, right? Until Jesus comes again. And understanding that it's okay to go and seek out people that do what they say they're going to do. Like if you are listening to the show and you're like, well, Brittany seems legit, Emma seems legit. Okay, because we are. And we also line it up with the Bible. We also surround ourselves with people that do the same thing. A counterfeit is a counterfeit. It doesn't, right? It's that simple. And so if you are feeling this person isn't adding up and they're saying that they follow Jesus and that they are a Christian, but you're seeing some things, you're like, I don't know if that's it, then trust that and turn and go seek someone that is actually walking it out. And I know that we hear story after story, and people approach me, I know people approach you, and they approach you in a way of feeling safe, seen, and heard, but also thanking, right, you for creating space for them to exist as they are, and modeling what it means to love, right? And that is Jesus. That is God. Love is God. Love is Jesus. And when we think about, 1 Corinthians 13, we're talking about like love is patient, love is kind. That is not from Walk to Remember or for marriages, right? Love is God. God is all those things, and he made us like that, right? And we're broken, like you said. And so to have grace and understanding that uh if you've been hurt by a human, don't 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 cut God short just yet, right? Give him another chance. Go and seek and find a group of people, a community, right? Like of people that seem to be in good sorts. I would encourage that for people as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there anything before we go into lifestyle questions that's sitting on your heart that you're like, I want to share?
I just think right now we're living in a very polarizing time, and I think it's important to take care of your mental health. If you are a believer or if you're not a believer, to really hone in like what what is it that you're called to do right now. There's a lot of just swirling of things happening and things that need to be addressed. But first of all, we can't do everything. I do believe that a house divided cannot stand. We are called to be, if you're a believer, you are called to be a bridge builder. And even if that means sometimes building a bridge with people you don't agree with, but in order for us as humans and Americans to create change, we can't be vilifying each other. And so I think anytime we can be bridge builders and realize just loving your neighbor as yourself
Yeah.
that has somehow gotten distorted, that's not what we should be doing. Um, but if we can do that and find out, even if it's just one or two things that we can make a difference, whether it be volunteering at a literacy council, a homeless shelter, at your child's school, picking up trash, like making the world a better place, finding your purpose, finding out how you can make a difference, whether you're a believer or not, and be a bridge builder. Like we can do something and we can create change, but without bridge builders, without people who are willing to listen to the other side, like I said, a house divided will not stand. And we are in, a lot of trouble. I think when I first came to know Christ, there wasn't this whole like, are you this or that? Are you this? It's just like I just couldn't wait to learn more about who God was. It wasn't muddled with so much divisiveness of like what type of Christian, or is this like I'm a believer, And I think right now we're just in a very we're at a precipice of knowing who you are and being a light without having to vilify the other side, if you will, whoever the other side is, whether it be politics, religion, race. I think we need to do a lot more listening. I saw this article about this guy who just like sets up a chair. And actually, there's this event going on where there's people all across America are doing this event where they put a bench in different public places and allow people to conversate. And I think it's more that we can do that. So anytime you can create a space for actual conversation that's not that's actually listening to each other and trying to understand and try, just like a marriage, right? Like you try to come to the middle. It's not about winning necessarily. It's like where can we come and come and meet, especially if we are call ourselves believers. So I think that's just something. Last thing I just want to be able to share that we need more of that.
I love that. And I think too, I love that you called everybody to listen and to understand and to just posture yourself to be curious, right? Be curious. Like I am so curious as to why, of the why, for the what, for the who, for the where, like total teacher in me, who, what, where, when, why, how, right? I'm like, that's what I'm curious about. And I think if we stay curious about why someone does what they do, or where they're at in their life, or why they like this video game, or, it doesn't even matter what it is, right? I just find, and I literally, I think if anybody's listening, and this is something that I've watched you do, it sounds silly, but it's kind of like going to the gym, right? And like getting a nice pair of like athletic wear. You feel like you're in the moment. Like I try to do this on my show where I don't really worry about my face. Like I know that my face, I'm not like mouth open, like, right. But I really work to be comfortable and to be mindful of like, do I feel and am I presenting my body as if I'm intrigued and I'm listening, right? And I think if we can practice that exercise physically, it actually, the head heart connection happens. And I've seen you do it too, Em, where you literally like lean in and you really posture your body to show the person on the other side that you're intrigued and you're listening. And so for the listeners out there watching and listening, the next time you go to a friend's house, the next time your kids are sitting at the dinner table, the next time your boyfriend, right, comes in and is excited, the next time somebody calls you, right, show them that you're listening physically. And what you'll end up doing is it becomes a habit. Like I just do this all the time now. And sometimes I'll say, I could go on. So I encourage people to like line up your mind and your listening ears with your heart and your body. And the more you set yourself up to listen physically, all of that will come into play. And like you said, will give you the opportunity to truly understand and come together. So I love that. It's a good one.
That's good.
Okay, lifestyle questions. You ready? I'm very interested to hear the answer to these. What is your favorite local small business you frequent often where you live here in the Wilmington area? And like a place that you can't live without that you want to shout out?
Yeah. Well, it might sound an expected answer, but local coffee shops, the Roastery and Port Z Java are like my top two. The Roastery, of course, I love Vigilant Hope's mission to equip the body to serve those who are under-resourced and those in poverty. And it really is a bridge, coffee shops are, right? Like people meet all the time. Like we met there, right? But people meet that normally wouldn't meet. That is also helping bridge the divide. Actually, this guy had this business card I saw today and actually got to introduce him with this other guy, which I love doing at coffee shops. But his business card was like, it was showing two different, like a representation of two differences, like stark contrast, like, and it like morphed into this coffee cup. And it was like, that was like his MO, if you will, is helping be a bridge and bring opposite ends to have coffee. That was his business card. It was so cool. But
Whoa, these are the kind of people that Emma meets. Like now it's like we have to protect her because she just attracts everybody. I'm like, Emma, you gotta stay focused.
All the people. But yeah, so coffee shop Port C Java was actually before Starbucks. Wilmington only had that was like the only coffee shop, local coffee shop at the time. Now we have hundreds of billion. But I'm letting the cat out of the bag. Port C Java on Oleander is the best Port C Java because it's really large and there's just a lot of room to be.
It's been your office for.
No, it's been my mobile office. Don't tell anyone except for the listeners.
Except for the entire world now, right?
I know. Now the whole world is gonna know. But the Roastery is. I love their mission. I love that it funds helping more people as well, and they also have the smoothies, Lensations connected to it, which is really cool too. So those would be top two.
I think it's cool for those obviously that are listening. Most people don't know is that you and Laura Bullock went to college together. And I think that's also really sweet that you align in the work that you're doing, your friends, and you both started literally at the ground level together and have come up building these infrastructures and these bridges and these connective bodies to do good work and to create healing and redemption in the city. And I think that's what makes it sweet, right? Because it's hard and it's not for the lack of, resilience, persistence, grit, grace, all of it. And to know that like a comrade in arms has been with you since like, you know, your hip hop days, like it's, and she loves, and it's so funny because like you love like hip hop, and then she's all about the Latin dancing, and I'm like, what's
Yeah.
up with the two of you and like all the fun? It's just so funny, so funny.
Yeah. And I don't know if you know this, but I did used to be a Zumba instructor.
Not
And she
surprised.
does
Not
no,
surprised.
just saying, and she does the dance and workout instructing too, or she used to. So we got that going on. But yeah, it's cool to be able to have a co-laborer that like I've known since she was a teenager, and just seeing how God has used her in our city is really awesome.
So cool. Okay, what is a book that you've read multiple times that you believe someone listening should read?
Well, there's a few, but as a former elementary teacher, I'm gonna go with a couple of kids' books, but I'll give you adult book too.
Okay.
But so The Giving Tree, I love that book.
Good one.
Yeah, and Other Places You'll Go, of course. I do believe that a lot of women, especially, just like need permission to dream and just believe in themselves, and especially with Other Places You Will Go, like knowing like there are places you'll go and believing that. And I always read that to my kids as well. And I was like thinking I love the idea of reading, but I don't read as much as I should, to be honest. But I have read My Purpose Driven Life several times. And I think when I first came to know the Lord, like that book really helped me like understand. I think one of the first lines is like, it's not about you. And just understanding like,
So good.
I think that's one of the things too with like resilience is like, yes, like there's a time to mourn, but there's a time where you have to move and realize like it's not all about you, and there's other people around you that are suffering too. And you can't just stay in that space of just grief and like inward, turmoil. Like you have to come out and realize you have a purpose and you matter. And so yeah, Purpose of a Life was a good one for me in different seasons. And of course, the Bible is one of the few books I've read multiple times, and obviously it keeps giving.
Keeps
Um,
And you
keeps
can read
giving.
it like I read a scripture recently that I just was like, I think when you're constantly growing, and you can relate this to personal growth books as well. When you're constantly growing, your perspective, your life, your experience is going to change how you process something. And I think ultimately, in a very worldly way, that's the easiest way to describe like how and why the Bible doesn't ever stop is because you have grown older, you have had children, you got married, like life happens. And so naturally, your perception, your mind, your processing, your experience, your maturity, all that's going to change, which means words that you read while you were wrestling with God in the Bible are not going to feel the same now, but maybe there's other words that you're wrestling with. And so I love that you gave those books, you gave the Bible. And I also love that you talked about wrestling with God. I believe God's a girl dad. And I think there's such a tenderness about him. And I also think the more permission, right? Like, and you can think about it with your own parents, the more permission you've been given to ask the questions in a safe place, right? Not to be mean or yell at your parents or to swear at them, but to genuinely just come to them so not sure, right?
Yeah.
You'll get to the answer. It may not happen right then and there, but you'll get to the answer. And I do think that the wrestling with God piece is not something that's encouraged so freely. And I think that permission to wrestle, that permission to question and ask in a productive way is the difference between someone that knows God and that someone has a relationship with God, right? Because they won't have this closed off sense of self. And to be honest, like I just think it's healthy, right? Like it's just healthy to say, I don't understand. I don't know why. And it's okay that you don't.
Yeah.
And just allow God to work despite that. And
Yeah.
I think that's dismantling some of the things that we've done in the past. And so thank you for really speaking that out multiple times, because I know there's a lot of people that, uh, yeah, I just know the show is every single episode. I know that someone's hearing this and they're going to be blessed by it. And so just thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, are you ready? I want you to give the full plug. I mean, I think I did a pretty good job for sprinkling in One Christian Network, but I want you to
Yeah.
share a little bit about the mission, the vision, what we're working on, how people can get involved, where can they find you, social media, website and things. And I'm going to put those in
Yeah.
the show notes as well, and there'll be links and they can easily click on.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, so I started it 11 years ago just as a need to I just saw that more relationships need to be formed across sectors, and all the things that divide us, so race, denomination, um, socioeconomic status, and that obviously we're better together in a community. And um, again, we talked about being a bridge builder. So really it was out of, helping different ministries do different events and just seeing just the need for us to come across the aisle, if you will, and really work together. And so started at 11 years ago, started gathering leaders while I was teaching, and officially became a nonprofit 2018. So our vision is to unite the church. When we say the church, the body of Christ, Christian leaders, to transform our city. And our mission is to mobilize God's people and resources by creating a hub of communication, connection, and collaboration. So we make connections for people, whether it's churches that need new spaces to meet, or it could be people that need mental health or housing resources, to creating space for people to network. So we have quarterly networking meetings, and then we have 4 initiatives. We call them our Reimagine Wilmington initiatives. So reimagining what Wilmington could be. We work together through foster care, education, housing, and united prayer. And so there's different things within that. Some meet quarterly, some meet monthly. And a lot of it's about mobilizing. So like we already have great programs. We already have even some great coalitions, but it's kind of connecting the dots and helping just what's already happening be elevated, and um, making sure people are aware so that they can connect to whatever their gifting is. So really, individuals can get connected. You don't have to be the head of an organization to get involved, but there's all different ways people can get involved. But really, people are part of the network where they realize that they're not, right? Like just by being who they are and being in the community. And so you can get as involved as you want, or just being aware, and even just letting us know what your gifts and talents are and how we can connect you. So that's it in a nutshell. And our website's onechristiannetwork.com. We also have all the community resources, community calendar on there. We have a Facebook group. People can post their events. And we just want to serve the body. We want everyone to be able to plug in and work together for the flourishing of our city. So that's my little spiel.
I love it.
If you have any
I love it.
Yeah.
And, I think for those of you listening, like One Christian Network is a network, and it is a network model based on Christian Community Development Association. And so that is also like, there's networks all over the country. So you know how they have the RES, right? Where it's like whatever that actually stands for. I bet $20 someone's going to hear One Christian Network and all of a sudden they're going to see it in their city, right? So just be open that like wherever you are across the country, there are networks like One Christian here in Wilmington that are all over the country that you can plug into. And I think just like Emma said, even if it is just to be aware, right? Because the reality is you're going to meet someone, you're going to know someone, you're going to experience someone who may need those resources. So you may not feel called to go and serve or volunteer or time, talents, and treasures, but just knowing about it is an incredible resource. I think it's an equipping that costs us nothing and can change a life, right? And so you can go into all the stories about that deeply, right? And so I would just encourage anybody, if you wherever you are in the country, Google, right? Like what are the community networks, and just see what's available. Read their mission statement, right? Ask to get coffee. There's some really incredible people doing incredible work all across the country. And I think, and I'm excited for this episode to come out to kind of bring awareness to the network model and just doing redemptive healing work in the cities around the United States.
Yeah. And what's really cool is I'm connected to an organization called City Leaders Collective, but there's all these unity movements that now are coming together. I haven't even shared with this. I'll tell you more about it later, Brittany. But just so all your viewers or your listeners can hear, there's all these unity movements that have they have their own niche, their own niche, or whatever you want to call it. But they are coming together to do something called Every City Coalition. And so we're going to be seeing a lot more networks, mobilization, resources, because they're all the Avengers have assembled.
Love it.
And they're just really going to be sharing resources and communicating. We'll learn more about what that looks like, but it's going to be really good. So we're going to see a lot more collaboration in cities in the future. But City Leaders Collective has a map of the ones that are connected to them specifically on their website.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I'll put that link in there too so people can check that out. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you. It's so fun.
I'm so glad.
I enjoyed it, and I appreciate you and all that you're doing to highlight the work in people's lives and being a mouthpiece. So thank you for your work, and I just pray that God continues to bless the Brittany Wheeler Show.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys follow Emma on everything. Pray, discern, think, whatever that looks like for you as to whether or not you want to be involved or you know someone, right? Like maybe it's not you, but maybe it's someone you know. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can watch all and get notifications about all the episodes coming out. Follow us on Instagram and all the different social media platforms that we have. And I just hope that you took something really beautiful away from today, whether it's your own personal story, your own walk with God, or the invitation to become closer to something that makes no sense. And then I have both been there, and we just hope that this invitations conversation is something new that maybe you feel like taking the next step. DM me, DM Emma if you have any questions. We're happy to do it and love you know. And so, as always, do good things, make me proud, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.